Jake Martinez stepped off the transport ship with his German Shepherd walking beside him. The dog's black and tan fur gleamed under the bright lights of Galactic Space Station Harmony. Buddy kept close to Jake's left side, his brown eyes alert, and scanning the busy docking bay. The space station buzzed with activity. Tall, thin blue aliens carried glowing cases. Short, round creatures with 4 arms rolled past on wheeled platforms. Flying insect-like beings zipped overhead in organized formations. Jake had seen many alien species during his years as a diplomat, but this station hosted more varieties than he had ever encountered in one place. "Stay close, boy," Jake whispered to Buddy. The dog's ears perked up at his owner's voice, and his tail gave a small wag. Captain Lisa Murphy approached them with 2 security officers. She wore the standard gray uniform of station security, and her red hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. "Welcome to Harmony Station, Ambassador Martinez," Lisa said, shaking Jake's hand. "I'm Captain Murphy, head of security. We'll escort you to your quarters." As they walked through the main corridor, Jake noticed how other beings stopped to stare at Buddy. Their reactions ranged from curiosity to confusion. Some pointed with whatever appendages they had. Others made clicking or whistling sounds that Jake assumed were their versions of laughter. A group of tall, scaly reptilian creatures blocked their path. The largest one stepped forward. His green scales caught the light, and his yellow eyes fixed on Buddy with obvious disgust. "I am Ambassador Zexthar of the Saurian Empire," the creature said in perfect English. His voice was deep and cold. "You must be the human delegation we heard about." "Yes, I'm Jake Martinez," Jake replied, extending his hand. Zexthar looked at the offered hand but did not take it. "Is this creature your prisoner?" Zexthar asked, pointing a clawed finger at Buddy. Jake frowned. "Prisoner? No, this is Buddy. He's my companion." The Saurian's mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth in what Jake realized was their version of a smile. "Companion? You mean you keep this inferior being as entertainment?" "He's not inferior," Jake said calmly. "He's my friend." Zexthar made a harsh barking sound that other Saurians echoed. "Friend? You claim friendship with a creature that cannot even speak your language?" Before Jake could answer, a buzzing sound filled the air. 3 large insect-like aliens descended from above. Their bodies were covered in smooth black exoskeletons, and their multifaceted eyes glowed with a soft green light. "This is Commander Velna of the Hive Collective," Zexthar said. "She finds your pet situation as amusing as we do." Commander Velna's voice came from speakers built into her exoskeleton. "The human emotional attachment to non-sentient creatures is inefficient. It wastes resources and mental energy that could be used for productive purposes. Buddy is intelligent," Jake said. "He can solve problems, understand commands, and even sense danger before we can." Velna's antennae twitched. "Basic animal instincts, nothing more. You humans mistake simple biological programming for intelligence." More aliens gathered around them. Jake recognized some species from his diplomatic training. There were the blue Kethari traders, the 4-armed Dolgrim merchants, and several others he had only read about in files. "Look at how the human talks to the creature," one of the Kethari said in their musical language, "as if it can understand complex thoughts." "My species keeps similar creatures for food," announced a bulky alien with gray fur and tusks. "They are useful for nutrition, nothing more." Buddy pressed closer to Jake's leg. The dog could sense the tension in the air, even if he could not understand the words being spoken about him. "On my world we have creatures like this," Zexthar continued. "We use them for hunting and protection, but we do not pretend they are our equals. We do not bring them to important meetings." Lisa Murphy stepped forward. "Ambassador Martinez's companion is cleared for all diplomatic areas. He has passed all security protocols." "Security protocols?" Velna's voice buzzed with what sounded like laughter. "You scan creatures that cannot even operate basic technology? How primitive." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. "Buddy has saved human lives. He has abilities that our technology cannot match." "Abilities?" Zexthar's yellow eyes narrowed. What abilities could this creature possibly have that your advanced technology lacks? His senses are far superior to ours, Jake explained. He can detect things we cannot see, hear, or smell. He can read emotions and intentions. He can navigate in complete darkness. The gathered aliens made various sounds of amusement. Some clicked their tongues, others buzzed, and a few made noises Jake could not identify. "You depend on an inferior creature for your survival?" asked a tall, thin alien with purple skin. "This explains much about human weakness." "It's not weakness," Jake said. "It's partnership." "Partnership?" Zexthar's voice dripped with contempt. "You cannot have partnership with a being that cannot contribute equally. This creature is nothing more than a living tool that you have grown emotionally attached to." Dr. Amy Foster appeared at Jake's side. She was a xenobiologist assigned to study alien cultures during the diplomatic mission. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she carried a tablet computer. "The human-canine bond is actually quite sophisticated," Amy said to the group. "It represents thousands of years of coevolution and mutual benefit." "Coevolution?" Velna's antennae twitched rapidly. "You claim to have evolved alongside creatures that walk on four legs and communicate through barking?" "Dogs and humans have shaped each other's development," Amy explained. "We've become partners in survival, hunting, protection, and companionship." The aliens looked at each other with obvious skepticism. Some made clicking sounds that Jake was beginning to recognize as their version of laughter. "Humans," Zexthar said, addressing the crowd rather than Jake directly, "have made themselves dependent on creatures that cannot even feed themselves without assistance. They waste resources caring for beings that contribute nothing to their society." "They contribute plenty," Jake said firmly. "Loyalty, protection, companionship, and abilities that complement our own." "Loyalty?" The Saurian ambassador's voice rose. "You speak of loyalty from a creature that follows you only because you provide food and shelter. Remove those things, and see how loyal your pet remains." Buddy looked up at Jake, sensing his owner's growing frustration. The dog's tail stopped wagging, and his ears flattened against his head. "The creature senses your weakness," observed Velna. "It knows you are upset and reacts accordingly. This is not intelligence or loyalty. It is simple behavioral conditioning." Jake knelt down and placed his hand on Buddy's head. The dog immediately relaxed, his tail resuming its gentle wagging. "We should proceed to your quarters," Lisa said quietly. "The other delegates will be arriving soon for tonight's welcome dinner." As they walked away, Jake could hear the aliens continuing their discussion about human pets. Their voices carried words like primitive, dependent, and weakness. Amy walked beside Jake and whispered, "Don't let them get to you. They don't understand what they're seeing." "What are they seeing?" Jake asked. "Something their species never developed," Amy replied. "The ability to form true partnerships across species barriers. To them, every relationship is about dominance, utility, or survival. They can't comprehend mutual affection and cooperation." Jake looked down at Buddy, who was walking calmly beside him despite the hostile attention they had received. The dog's presence was comforting, just as it had been during countless diplomatic missions and difficult negotiations. "Tonight's dinner should be interesting," Lisa said with a slight smile. "Most of the major species will be there, and they'll all want to discuss your companion." "Let them talk," Jake said. "Buddy and I have been through worse than alien dinner parties." But as they reached Jake's quarters, he could not shake the feeling that the aliens' mockery was more than simple cultural misunderstanding. There was something calculating in their dismissal of the human-animal bond, something that made him think they saw it as more than just a curiosity, something they might consider a weakness to be exploited. The welcome dinner took place in the station's grand dining hall. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that curved upward like the inside of a dome. Soft blue lights created a calm atmosphere, and the walls showed moving images of peaceful landscapes from different worlds. Jake sat at the main table with Buddy lying quietly at his feet. The dog had been unusually calm all day, but Jake noticed his ears would perk up whenever certain aliens spoke. It was as if Buddy could sense something that Jake could not. Dr. Amy Foster sat across from Jake, her tablet computer resting beside her plate. She had been taking notes all day about the different alien reactions to Buddy. Her brown eyes moved constantly, watching how each species behaved around the dog. The Cathari seemed curious but cautious, Amy whispered to Jake. The Dahlgrim are mostly indifferent, but the Saurians in the Hive Collective are actively hostile. Jake nodded while cutting his synthetic protein meal. I noticed that too. Zexthar keeps staring at Buddy like he's planning something. At the far end of the table, Ambassador Zexthar was deep in conversation with Commander Velna. Their voices were too low for humans to hear, but Buddy's ears twitched every time they spoke. Security Officer Tom Blake approached their table. He was Captain Murphy's second-in-command, a tall man with sandy hair and alert green eyes. Ambassador Martinez, Tom said quietly. We've had some interesting communications today. Several species have been asking about station policies regarding animals. What kind of questions? Jake asked. Whether there are restrictions on where they can go, what happens if they cause problems, that sort of thing, Tom replied. Captain Murphy thought you should know. Amy looked up from her tablet. That's unusual. Most species don't care about our internal policies unless they're planning something. Before Jake could respond, a commotion erupted near the dining hall entrance. A small, blue-skinned child had wandered away from their family table and was now crying loudly. The child's large black eyes were filled with tears, and their musical voice created a sound like wind chimes in distress. Several adult Cathari rushed around the dining hall, calling out in their language. The child continued to cry, clearly scared and confused by all the attention. Buddy stood up suddenly, his tail wagging. He looked at Jake with an expression that seemed to ask for permission. What is it, boy? Jake asked. Buddy walked slowly toward the crying child, moving carefully so as not to frighten them further. The adult stopped calling and watched nervously as the large dog approached their offspring. The child saw Buddy coming and stopped crying. Their large eyes focused on the dog's gentle brown eyes. Buddy sat down a few feet away and tilted his head to one side, making a soft whining sound. The child giggled, a sound like tiny bells ringing. They reached out one small blue hand toward Buddy. The dog moved closer, allowing the child to touch his soft fur. Within moments, the child was petting Buddy and laughing. The dog's tail wagged slowly and he made gentle sounds that seemed to calm the young Cathari completely. One of the adult Cathari approached cautiously. Thank you, they said in accented English. Our child was frightened by all the noise and confusion. Jake smiled. Buddy likes children. He has a way of making them feel safe. The adult Cathari looked amazed. Your companion understood that our offspring was in distress? Dogs are very good at reading emotions, Amy explained. They can sense fear, sadness, and happiness in many different species. The Cathari family thanked Jake again before taking their child back to their table, but the incident had been witnessed by everyone in the dining hall. Interesting, Zexthar said loudly, his voice carrying across the room. The creature shows basic pack instincts toward young beings. This is common among predators on many worlds. It was more than instinct, Jake replied. Buddy chose to help. No one commanded him to do it. Choice? Commander Velna's mechanical voice buzzed. You attribute conscious decision-making to a creature with limited brain capacity? Amy stood up, her scientific training taking over. Actually, canine brain structure is quite complex. They have areas dedicated to emotional processing, memory, and social behavior that are remarkably similar to human brain structures. Similar to human brains? Zexthar's yellow eyes gleamed. Perhaps this explains human limitations in logical thinking. Several aliens made sounds that Jake was learning to recognize as laughter. The mockery was becoming more direct and insulting. A new voice interrupted the conversation. What seems to be the discussion here? Everyone turned to see a young Saurian approaching their table. Unlike the older ambassadors, this one was smaller and had brighter green scales. Their movements were quick and curious rather than slow and intimidating. I am Krixta, the young Saurian said. I am here to learn about different species and cultures. Zexthar's expression darkened. Krixta, you should return to your designated seating area. But the young Saurian ignored the older ambassador and looked directly at Buddy. Is this the creature that helped the young Cathari? Yes, Jake said. This is Buddy. Krixta moved closer, their head tilted in curiosity. May I observe your companion more closely? Jake looked at Zexthar, who was clearly angry but could not refuse without causing a diplomatic incident. Of course. Krixta knelt down near Buddy, moving slowly and carefully. The dog watched the young Saurian with interest, but no fear. After a moment, Buddy's tail began to wag slightly. Fascinating, Krixta said. The creature shows no aggressive behavior despite my species' natural predator scent. Buddy is very good at judging character, Jake said. He can tell the difference between someone who means harm and someone who is simply curious. Character? Krixta's large eyes blinked rapidly. You believe this creature can assess the intentions of beings it has never encountered before? I've seen him do it many times, Jake replied. He's an excellent judge of who can be trusted. Amy leaned forward. Dogs evolved alongside humans for thousands of years. They learned to read not just human emotions and intentions, but the emotions and intentions of other species as well. Suddenly, a loud alarm began blaring throughout the dining hall. Red, lights flashed on the walls and an automated voice announced, "Attention all residents. Gas leak detected in Section 7. Emergency crews responding. Avoid Section 7 until further notice." The dining hall erupted in confusion as aliens began talking loudly in their various languages. Station security officers rushed through the room, directing people away from certain areas. But Buddy was acting strangely. He stood up and began pacing back and forth, whining and looking toward a wall that Jake knew led to Section 7. The dog's behavior was agitated, almost panicked. What's wrong with him? Krixta asked. Jake watched his companion carefully. Buddy was exhibiting behavior that Jake had seen only a few times before, during dangerous situations that human technology had failed to detect. Buddy, Jake said quietly, what do you smell? The dog looked at Jake and then back at the wall. He began pawing at the floor and whining more urgently. Tom Blake noticed the dog's behavior and approached quickly. Ambassador, is your dog acting unusual? Very unusual, Jake said. He only acts like this when he detects danger that we can't perceive. Amy was already scanning the area with her tablet computer. I'm not reading any gas signatures here. The leak is supposed to be 3 sections away. But Buddy continued his agitated pacing. He moved to different parts of the wall, sniffing carefully and whining at specific spots. The creature's behavior is irrational, Velna observed. There is no danger in this location. Jake trusted his dog's instincts more than the station's sensors. Tom, I think you should scan this wall more carefully. Buddy is telling us something is wrong. Tom pulled out his handheld scanner and began running it along the wall where Buddy had been most agitated. After a few moments, his expression changed. Ambassador, Tom said quietly, I'm detecting trace amounts of the same gas that's leaking in Section 7. It's very faint, but it's here. Amy's eyes widened. That's impossible. Gas doesn't travel through solid station walls. Unless there's a breach we don't know about, Tom replied. He spoke into his communication device. Captain Murphy, we need a full structural scan of the wall between the dining hall and Section 7. We may have multiple breach points. Within minutes, Captain Murphy arrived with a team of engineers. Their scans confirmed what Buddy had detected. Microscopic fractures in the wall that were allowing gas to seep through at levels too low for the station's main sensors to detect. If this had gone unnoticed for a few more hours, one of the engineers said, the gas concentration in this room would have reached dangerous levels. The dining hall was evacuated while repairs were made. As they left, Jake heard various aliens discussing what had happened. The human creature detected a problem that our advanced technology missed, one of the Cathari said. Remarkable sensory capabilities, agreed a Dulgrim merchant. But Jake also heard other voices. Lucky coincidence, Zexthar muttered to his companions. Simple animal reaction to chemical stimuli, Velna added. Nothing more than basic biological programming. As they walked toward the temporary gathering area, Crixta stayed close to Jake and Buddy. "Your companion saved many lives tonight," the young Saurian said. "He did what he was bred to do," Jake replied. "Protect his pack." "Pack?" Crixta's eyes grew wide. "You consider—" The next morning brought new arrivals to Harmony Station. Jake watched through his quarters window as another transport ship docked. The ship bore the markings of the Saurian military, which made Jake uneasy. Diplomatic missions usually involved civilian representatives, not soldiers. Buddy had been restless all night, pacing around their quarters and occasionally whining at the door. Jake had learned to trust his companion's instincts, especially after the gas leak incident. If Buddy was worried, there was probably good reason to be. A knock at the door interrupted Jake's thoughts. He opened it to find Pete Collins, a human engineer, standing in the corridor with a border collie at his side. "Ambassador Martinez," Pete said, extending his hand. "I'm Pete Collins from the engineering department. This is Max." He gestured to his black and white dog who was sitting alertly beside him. Jake shook Pete's hand and smiled. "Good to meet you both. What brings you to the diplomatic section?" "Routine maintenance," Pete replied. "We're upgrading some of the power systems in this area. Max helps me detect electrical problems that scanners sometimes miss. Dogs can hear frequency changes in electrical systems that human ears can't pick up." As if summoned by Pete's words, Buddy appeared at Jake's side. The two dogs looked at each other for a moment, then their tails began wagging. They approached each other carefully, sniffing and making the social connections that dogs do when meeting. "Looks like they're going to be friends," Pete said with a grin. Jake was about to reply when Captain Murphy appeared in the corridor, walking quickly toward them. Her expression was serious. "Ambassador Martinez, we need to talk," she said. "Privately." Jake invited her into his quarters. Pete started to leave, but Lisa held up a hand. "You should hear this too, Mr. Collins. It might affect your work schedule." Lisa activated a small device that would prevent electronic surveillance. "General Harthok arrived this morning with a military escort. He's supposedly here for the trade negotiations, but my sources suggest he has other plans." "What kind of plans?" Jake asked. "The kind that involve demonstrating Saurian superiority over human weakness," Lisa replied. "My intelligence contacts overheard conversations about testing human dependence on inferior creatures." Amy Foster entered the room without knocking, something she would never do unless the situation was urgent. "We have a problem," she said breathlessly. "I've been monitoring alien communications, and I picked up fragments of a Saurian transmission." She activated her tablet and played a recording. The voices were speaking in the Saurian language, but her translation software provided English subtitles. "The humans will panic when separated from their creatures," one voice said. "Without their pets to provide emotional support, they will make poor decisions," another replied. "This will prove our superiority in the negotiations," a third voice added. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "They're planning to separate us from our dogs." "It gets worse," Amy continued. "I detected references to Section C7, which is the maintenance area where Pete is scheduled to work today." Pete looked confused. "What's in Section C7 that they would care about?" Lisa pulled up a station schematic on her communicator. C7 connects to several critical systems. If someone wanted to create an emergency situation that would separate people from their companions, that would be a good place to do it. Buddy and Max both stood up suddenly, their ears perked forward. They moved to the door and began sniffing at the gap underneath it. "What are they detecting?" Amy asked. Jake opened the door carefully and looked down the corridor. It appeared empty, but both dogs were acting agitated. They moved into the hallway and began following a scent trail that humans could not detect. "Someone was here," Pete said, watching his dog's behavior. "Max only acts like this when he's tracking a specific scent." The dogs led them down the corridor to a maintenance panel that had been recently opened. Tool marks around the lock suggested it had been forced. Lisa scanned the panel with her handheld device. "Someone accessed the environmental controls 20 minutes ago," They altered the atmospheric settings for Section C7. Altered how? Jake asked. The oxygen levels are being gradually reduced, Lisa replied. In about 2 hours, that section will become dangerous for humans to enter. Pete checked his work schedule. I'm supposed to start maintenance in C7 in 90 minutes. Amy was studying her tablet intensely. This is coordinated. They're planning to lure you into a dangerous area, then seal it off. When you're trapped, they expect you to panic because you'll be separated from your dogs. But that's not how it works, Jake said. Our dogs wouldn't abandon us. They'd find a way to help. The Saurians don't understand that, Lisa replied. They think the relationship only goes one way. They believe the dogs depend on us for everything, and we depend on them for emotional support. Buddy had moved to another panel further down the corridor. He was pawing at it and whining urgently. Pete followed his dog and examined the panel. This one's been tampered with, too. Someone has been busy. Lisa's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. She read it quickly, and her expression grew more serious. General Harthok has requested an immediate meeting with all human representatives. He wants to discuss what he calls our security vulnerabilities. The trap is being set, Amy said. They want us all in one place so they can spring whatever they've planned. Jake looked down at Buddy and Max, who were both alert and focused. What they don't realize is that our dogs are not just pets. They're partners, and partners don't abandon each other when things get dangerous. Pete nodded. Max has gotten me out of more dangerous situations than I can count. He doesn't just detect problems. He solves them. Lisa was already making plans. We need to turn this around on them. If they're expecting us to panic and make mistakes, we need to do the opposite. How? Jake asked. We let them spring their trap, Lisa replied. But we'll be ready for it, and we'll have help they're not expecting. She knelt down and looked at both dogs. You two are about to show these aliens what real partnership looks like. Amy was monitoring communications on her tablet. I'm picking up more Saurian transmissions. They're discussing timing. Whatever they're planning will happen during the meeting with Harthok. That gives us less than an hour to prepare, Lisa said. Pete was studying the maintenance schedules on his communicator. I'm supposed to be working alone in C7 when their plan activates. They probably expect Jake to be in the meeting separated from Buddy. They're counting on us following human protocols, Jake realized. Humans in meetings, dogs waiting outside. But what if we don't follow their expectations? Lisa asked. Buddy walked over to Max, and the two dogs seemed to communicate in the way that dogs do. Their body language suggested they understood that something important was happening. Look at them, Amy said with wonder. They're coordinating. They know we're planning something. Jake watched his companion carefully. Buddy's eyes were alert and intelligent, focused on Jake's face as if trying to understand the human conversation. The Saurians see dependence where there's actually cooperation, Jake said. They see weakness where there's actually strength. Pete checked his equipment bag. Max and I have worked in dangerous conditions before. We know how to handle emergencies. This won't be like other emergencies, Lisa warned. They're not just trying to create a dangerous situation. They're trying to prove a point about human civilization. Amy looked up from her tablet. Then let's prove a different point. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate the bond between humans and dogs. Lisa's communicator buzzed again. The meeting with Harthok has been moved up. He wants to see all human representatives in Conference Room Alpha in 30 minutes. The timeline is accelerating, Jake said. Whatever they have planned is about to begin. Buddy moved to Jake's side and sat down, but his posture remained alert. Max did the same with Pete. Both dogs seemed to understand that their humans were about to face danger. They're ready, Pete observed. Whatever happens, they'll be ready. Lisa gathered her equipment. Remember, they expect us to act like helpless humans who panic when separated from our emotional support animals. Instead, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten a dog's human. Jake knelt down and placed his hand on Buddy's head. You ready for this, boy? Buddy's tail wagged once and his brown eyes looked directly into Jake's. The message was clear. Wherever Jake went, Whatever danger they faced, they would face it together. Amy was still monitoring alien communications. I'm detecting movement throughout the station. Multiple species are repositioning themselves to observe whatever the Saurians have planned. They're expecting a show, Lisa said grimly. Let's make sure we give them one they'll never forget. The trap was set, but Jake had a feeling that the Saurians had no idea what they were actually trapping. General Harthok stood at the head of Conference Room Alpha like a predator surveying its prey. His scales were darker than other Saurians Jake had met, almost black with silver edges. His yellow eyes moved constantly, studying each human in the room with obvious calculation. Welcome, human representatives, Harthok said in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. I have called this meeting to discuss security concerns regarding your mission. Jake sat at the conference table with Amy and 3 other human diplomats. According to station protocol, their animal companions had to wait outside in the corridor. Through the transparent wall, Jake could see Buddy sitting alertly next to the door. What security concerns? Asked Ambassador Linda Ross, the senior human diplomat. Your emotional dependencies create vulnerabilities, Harthok replied. Enemies could exploit your attachment to these creatures to manipulate your decisions. Amy leaned forward. Our companions enhance our capabilities, rather than weaken them. Harthok's mouth opened in what Jake recognized as a saurian smile. We shall test this claim. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the automated voice announced, Emergency in Section C7. Atmospheric breach detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. Jake's blood ran cold. Pete was supposed to be working in Section C7. How unfortunate, Harthok said, without any emotion in his voice. It appears your engineer is trapped in a dangerous area. I hope his emotional support animal does not distract him from making rational survival decisions. The conference room door suddenly sealed with a loud click. Jake tried the controls, but they would not respond. A necessary precaution, Harthok explained. We cannot risk diplomatic personnel attempting dangerous rescue operations driven by emotional impulses. Through the transparent wall, Jake watched Buddy stand up and move to the sealed door. The dog pawed at the controls and whined. Then Buddy looked directly at Jake through the wall, and Jake saw something in his companion's eyes that he had never seen before. Pure determination. Buddy turned and ran down the corridor toward the emergency. 3 other dogs that belonged to human staff members joined him, including Max, who must have escaped from wherever Pete had left him. Your creatures abandoned their posts at the first sign of danger, Harthok observed. As predicted. They're not abandoning anything, Jake said quietly. They're going to help. In Section C7, Pete was trapped behind a heavy door that had sealed automatically when the atmospheric systems failed. The oxygen level in his section was dropping rapidly, and his emergency suit would only last another 20 minutes. But Pete was not panicking. He had been in dangerous situations before, and Max had always found a way to help. Even though his dog was not with him now, Pete trusted that Max would not abandon him. Pete was right. Max arrived at Section C7 with Buddy and 2 other dogs. The border collie immediately began examining the sealed door while the other dogs spread out to investigate the area. Max found a maintenance panel near the floor that was designed for small repair robots. The panel was too small for human hands, but perfect for a dog's paws. Max had watched Pete work on similar panels dozens of times. The intelligent dog began manipulating the controls with his paws, using the same sequence he had seen Pete perform. It took several attempts, but Max managed to activate the emergency override. Meanwhile, Buddy had found an air vent that connected to Pete's sealed section. The German Shepherd was too large to fit through the vent, but he began barking in a specific pattern that Pete recognized as a location signal. Pete heard Buddy's barking and realized his position had been found. He moved to the air vent and called out, "Good boy, Buddy. Can you get help?" Buddy ran to find Captain Murphy, who was coordinating the emergency response from her security office. The dog grabbed the sleeve of her uniform and pulled her toward Section C7. "What is it, Buddy?" Lisa asked, but she followed the dog without hesitation. Buddy led her to the maintenance panel that Max had opened. Lisa immediately understood what the dogs had discovered and began working on the emergency systems. Back in the conference room, the human diplomats watched through the transparent wall as reports came in over the communication system. Emergency teams report that animals are assisting in rescue operations, a voice announced. A border collie has successfully activated emergency protocols in Section C7. Harthok's confident expression began to change. Impossible. The creatures lack the intelligence to operate complex systems. Section C7 emergency door has been unlocked, the voice continued. Engineer Pete Collins has been safely evacuated. The operation was coordinated by multiple animals working together. Amy smiled. Your test is proving the opposite of what you expected, General. Through the communication system, they could hear Pete's voice. Max saved my life. He operated controls that I couldn't reach and guided the rescue team to my location. These aren't just pets. They're partners. In the corridors near Section C7, something remarkable was happening. The 4 dogs had not dispersed after the rescue. Instead, they were working together to investigate other areas that might have been sabotaged. Buddy led the group to another maintenance panel that showed signs of tampering. Max examined the controls and determined that the atmospheric systems for the conference room had also been altered. The dogs found a pattern of sabotage throughout the station. Every system that had been tampered with was designed to create dangerous situations that would separate humans from their animal companions. Captain Murphy followed the dogs as they uncovered each piece of evidence. They're not just rescuing Pete, she said into her communicator. They're uncovering the entire sabotage operation. Buddy found the most important discovery, a hidden device that was controlling the sealed conference room door. The German Shepherd barked urgently until Lisa examined the device. This is Saurian technology, Lisa said. It's been placed here to trap the human diplomats. Max immediately began working on the device with his paws, using the same problem-solving skills that had opened the emergency systems. Within minutes, the conference room door unlocked. The human diplomats emerged to find their animal companions waiting for them. Each dog moved immediately to their human partner, but their behavior was different now. They were alert and coordinated, like a team that had just completed a successful mission. Impossible, Harthok said, his voice filled with disbelief. Animals cannot coordinate complex operations. They can, and they did, Jake replied, kneeling down to embrace Buddy. While you were trying to prove our weakness, our companions were proving their strength. Amy was examining the evidence that the dogs had uncovered. They found every piece of your sabotage operation, General. Every single device you planted. Pete arrived with the rescue team, still wearing his emergency suit. Max didn't just save me, he said. He led a coordinated operation that involved multiple animals working together toward a common goal. Harthok looked around the corridor at the assembled humans and their animal companions. The dogs were calm but alert, positioned protectively near their human partners. This changes nothing, Harthok said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. You remain dependent on inferior creatures. We're not dependent on them, Jake said firmly. We're partners with them. There's a difference. Captain Murphy was reviewing the evidence on her tablet. General Harthok, you're under arrest for sabotage and attempted murder. Your devices could have killed Engineer Collins. You cannot arrest me, Harthok protested. I have diplomatic immunity. Not for acts of terrorism, Lisa replied. And that's exactly what this was. As security officers moved to arrest Harthok, other alien species began arriving in the corridor. They had heard the reports of the rescue operation and wanted to see for themselves. Ambassador Zexthar appeared with several other Saurian diplomats. His expression was troubled as he looked at the evidence of his general's actions. This was not authorized by the Saurian Empire, Zexthar said carefully. General Harthok acted without official approval. Commander Velna descended from above with her insectoid companions. The coordination displayed by the animals suggests intelligence levels we did not anticipate. Young Krixta pushed through the crowd to get a closer look at the dogs. They worked together like a military unit. Each animal had a specific role in the operation. Jake looked down at Buddy, who was sitting calmly beside him despite all the attention. They did what they've always done. They protected their pack. Pack? Krixta asked. All of us, Jake replied. Humans, aliens, anyone who needed help. To them, we're all part of the same community. Amy was analyzing the coordination patterns on her tablet. They didn't just rescue Pete. They uncovered a conspiracy, preserved evidence, and prevented further attacks, all without any human guidance. Pete scratched Max behind the ears. I've worked with Max for 5 years, and I've never seen him operate at this level. It's like the emergency situation activated abilities I didn't know he had. Perhaps, said a new voice, you have been underestimating your companions all along. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. It was an elderly alien from a species Jake had never encountered before. They had silver skin and large, wise-looking eyes. I am Elder Thane of the Wisdom Collective, the being said. We have been observing today's events with great interest. The main conference hall was packed with representatives from every species on Harmony Station. Word of the rescue operation had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to understand what had really happened in Section C7. Jake sat at the center table with Buddy lying calmly at his feet. The dog's relaxed posture was in sharp contrast to the excited chatter filling the room. Pete sat nearby with Max, who occasionally looked around the room but remained focused on his human companion. Elder Thane stood at the front of the hall, their silver skin reflecting the soft lighting. Their large eyes moved slowly across the assembled crowd before they began to speak. Today we witnessed something remarkable, Elder Thane said in a voice that carried easily through the room. We saw the true nature of the bond between humans and their animal companions. Ambassador, Zexthar shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The events of the day had clearly shaken his understanding of human relationships. Elder Thane, what we saw was impressive, but it does not change the fundamental nature of the human-animal dynamic. What do you believe that fundamental nature to be? Elder Thane asked. Dependence, Zexthar replied, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. Humans depend on these creatures for emotional support, and the creatures depend on humans for survival. Young Krixta stood up from their seat. But that's not what we saw today. The animals acted independently to save their human companions. They showed intelligence, planning, and cooperation. Commander Velna's mechanical voice buzzed through her speakers. The coordination patterns displayed by the animals suggest a level of cognitive ability that our previous assessments did not account for. Amy Foster activated her tablet and projected data onto the main screen. I've been analyzing the rescue operation. The dogs used at least 12 different problem-solving techniques, communicated with each other through body language and vocalizations, and adapted their strategies in real time as conditions changed. Adaptation is a sign of higher intelligence, agreed a blue-skinned Cathari scientist. Our own studies show that only the most advanced species can modify their behavior based on changing circumstances. Pete stood up to address the crowd. I've worked with Max for 5 years. I understood his capabilities, but today he surprised me. He didn't just react to the emergency. He analyzed the situation, identified solutions, and coordinated with other animals to implement a complex rescue plan. How is this possible? Asked a 4-armed Dahlgrim merchant. Our species have companion animals, but they show nothing like this level of intelligence. Jake rose from his seat with Buddy standing beside him. The answer lies in how the relationship developed. Dogs and humans didn't just live together. We evolved together. For thousands of years, we shaped each other's development. Coevolution, Amy added, displaying new data on the screen. Humans selected for intelligence, loyalty, and cooperative behavior in dogs. Dogs selected for humans who could communicate effectively and work as partners rather than masters. Elder, Thane nodded slowly. This explains much. You did not simply domesticate these creatures, you formed a true partnership. A small furry alien with large ears spoke up from the back of the room. But why do you call them pets if they are partners? Jake smiled. The word pet doesn't capture the full relationship. It's just the closest term we have in our language. They're family members, working partners, and companions all at the same time. Family? Krixta's eyes widened. You consider different species to be family? Of course, Pete said. Max has been with me through dangers, celebrations, and everything in between. He's not just an animal I own. He's a member of my family who happens to have 4 legs instead of 2. Commander Velna's antennae twitched rapidly. This concept is difficult for my species to understand. We value efficiency and logic above emotional connections. But today proved that emotional connections can enhance efficiency, Amy pointed out. The dogs' loyalty to their human partners motivated them to achieve things that pure logic alone could not have accomplished. A new voice spoke from the entrance to the hall. Perhaps it is time for all of us to learn from this example. Everyone turned to see Captain Murphy entering with a security escort. Behind them walked several aliens that Jake didn't recognize, along with some familiar faces from other species. Representatives from 12 different species have requested permission to speak, Captain Murphy announced. The first to approach the speaking area was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and multiple eyes. I am Science Officer Naltesh of the Cathari Research Council. After observing today's events, we would like to know if similar partnerships are possible between humans and Cathari. Jake looked surprised. You want to form partnerships with humans? Not with humans, Naltesh clarified. We want to learn how to form partnerships with the creatures on our own world. We have intelligent animals that we have never considered as potential partners. A round green alien rolled forward on mechanical wheels. The Dahlgrim Merchant Guild agrees. We have creatures on our world that show intelligence, but we use them only for labor. Perhaps we have been missing opportunities for true cooperation. Even more surprising was the next speaker. Ambassador Zexthar approached the front of the hall slowly, his expression thoughtful. The Saurian Empire wishes to reconsider our previous position, Zexthar said carefully. We have intelligent creatures on our worlds that we have treated as mere beasts. Today's events suggest we may have been wrong. Krixta practically bounced in excitement. I volunteer to study human-dog partnerships. I want to learn how to communicate with the creatures on our world. Elder Thane smiled, an expression that transformed their ancient features. This is how wisdom spreads throughout the galaxy. One species learns something valuable, and others are wise enough to recognize its worth. Dr. Amy Foster was taking notes rapidly on her tablet. We could establish an interspecies partnership research program. Humans could share what we've learned about working with animals, and other species could teach us about their own creatures. The applications could be enormous, added a scientist from another species. Enhanced exploration, improved problem solving, better emergency response capabilities. Jake looked down at Buddy, who had been watching the entire discussion with alert interest. What do you think, boy? Ready to become a teacher? Buddy's tail wagged, and he gave a soft bark that somehow seemed to express agreement. Pete grinned. Max would love to show off his skills to other species. He's always been a bit of a show-off anyway. Commander Velna moved closer to examine both dogs. I am beginning to understand that we categorize these creatures incorrectly. They are not pets in the sense of possessions. They are partners in the sense of equals. Not just equals, Jake corrected gently. They're specialists. They have abilities we lack, and we have abilities they lack. Together, we're stronger than either species could be alone. Elder Thane raised their hands for attention. Let this day mark the beginning of a new understanding. The humans have shown us that true strength comes not from dominance over other creatures, but from partnership with them. The hall erupted in sounds of agreement from dozens of different species. Clicks, buzzes, musical tones, and other forms of approval filled the air. Young Krixta approached Jake and Buddy carefully. May I touch your partner? I want to understand this bond you speak of. Jake nodded, and Buddy stepped forward to meet the young Saurian. Krixta extended a clawed hand slowly, and Buddy sniffed it before allowing the touch. Incredible. Krixta whispered. I can sense the trust between you. It's not based on fear or dominance, it's based on mutual respect. As the formal session ended, representatives from various species approached Jake, Pete, and their companions. Each wanted to learn more about forming partnerships with intelligent creatures. The mockery and laughter from just days before had been replaced by curiosity and respect. The humans who had been dismissed as weak for their emotional attachments to inferior creatures were now seen as pioneers of a revolutionary approach to interspecies cooperation. Jake scratched Buddy behind the ears as they walked back to their quarters. "Well, boy, I think we started something big here." Buddy looked up at Jake with his intelligent brown eyes and wagged his tail. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to teach other species about the power of partnership, but tonight Jake was content to simply enjoy the quiet companionship of his four-legged partner, knowing that their bond had helped change how an entire galaxy thought about the relationships between different species. The humans and their pets had indeed had the last laugh.